Zelos Podcast is sponsored by Kinetic IQ, where intelligence meets motion. Kinetic IQ brings a biomechanics lab into the palm of your hand, letting you measure movement anytime, anywhere, with just an iPad or an iPhone, and no wearables required. I've been using Kinetic IQ's markerless motion capture in my own practice, and whether you're screening athletes, analyzing posture and gait mechanics, optimizing performance, or guiding return to play, it helps practitioners like us save time, capture more objective data, and make instant actionable decisions. So to learn more about how Kinetic IQ is shaping the future of intelligent movement, visit them at kineticiq.com. That's KINETIKIQ.com. You know, I can't tell you how thrilled I am to have Metabolic Elite be one of the sponsors of the Zelos Podcast. You know what makes Metabolic Elite different is their commitment to real results. I've seen a lot of supplements and performance enhancement things over the years, but they pair clinical experience with innovation, like Lipitab, their proprietary solid-state liposomal delivery system. It's a chewable format which enhances absorption, like nutrients like BPC 157 and synapses. They're delivered more efficiently in the body, supporting recovery, focus, cognitive health. Their formulas go beyond the basics, solving performance health challenges at the system level. Every product is tested for quality, it's backed by research, and trusted by athletes and clinicians alike. So learn more at metabolicelite.co. And you can get 10% off all of Metabolic Elite products by entering the coupon code ZELOS, Z-E-L-O-S. Hey, thanks for tuning into the Zelos Podcast. I'm your host, Rocky Snyder. This is the show that's all about the pros behind the pros in sports. And this week, Alex Forehan is my guest. He's the assistant athletic trainer to the New England Revolution, Major League Soccer. And with World Cup soccer around the corner, well, aside from MLS, everyone's kind of getting frothy all about soccer. Before we get underway, remember, we've got the Perform Better Functional Training Summits coming up. 2026 will be in Chicago in June, and then Long Beach, California in July, and Providence, Rhode Island in August. Hope to see a couple of those venues. I'll be presenting in Chicago and Long Beach. This year I'll miss out on Providence, Rhode Island, but I will also be down in New Orleans for the NSCA National Conference. That's going to be happening in July as well. So if you're in the Southeast or heading that way, shoot me a little text or an email. Let me know you're going to be down there, and we'll try and connect. You can always go to my website, rockysnyder.com, for podcast archives, weekly blogs. We've got online courses, some CEU education, and a whole bunch more. And, well, let's just get on to the conversation. Click that subscribe button, and away we go. Just to kick it off, Alex, first, thanks for coming on, putting some time aside in your busy schedule to be on the Zelos Podcast.
Of course, Rocky, no problem. Really appreciate you having me on. Like we chatted about this earlier. This is my first one of these, so a little nervous, but really excited and honored to get the chance to talk to you today.
All right. I'll see if I can't just really throw you on the hot seat and watch you sweat bullets. But no, in all honesty, man, you've got a dream job. You're working with the New England Revolution. You know, they've won the cup in previous years, and right now you guys are off to a good start, a strong, solid start. Few games, few matches underneath your belt, and I gotta admit, I've been down. I haven't stood on the pitch there, but I've been to Gillette Stadium, to Patriots Hall of Fame, TB12 before they closed it down there,
Okay.
and Patriots Way, and then just kind of trying to get my head over the fence there at the Revs pitch. Man, what a setup. You must be just loving what you're doing.
I really do, man. Honestly, you couldn't have said it any better. Dream job. Even though soccer wasn't something I really saw myself in at one point. Maybe we can delve into that later. But I mean, the setup is immaculate. I mean, we're so close to things. Obviously, we're going to utilize like hospitals, things of that nature. But just like the setup itself, it's a beautiful building, only a few years old. 4 pitches that we can train on. Everything's all inclusive. It's next to Gillette Stadium, which is easy for games, but it's kind of tucked back in its own little area of the woods. Beautiful drive in every morning. It's awesome. It's a great setup.
That's great. Okay, so before I hit that record button, I made an incorrect assumption. And the fact that you, like most athletic trainers, began your career path based on an experience you had as an injured athlete, but that wasn't the case. So, what the fire? What happened there? How did you decide on athletic training?
No, for sure. I am different than a lot of people in the profession, but my motivation was more, I always wanted to stick to something in sports, and I got away from that a little bit. And so I originally went to school when I went to the University of Kentucky for my undergrad. I originally started in chemical engineering. And then my goal within engineering was I was going to transition to materials with the goal of working for some sort of sporting goods company, whether it be like Easton for creating bats or cleats or things of that nature. That was my niche that I was trying to find with that. And about a year and a half into that, I was sitting in a lab pipetting things, and I was like, wow, this is a bit tedious. I don't really know if this is for me. Not quite as, action packed as I want it to be, but I still wanted the perfect balance of, science and sport, which led me to like athletic training, physical therapy, potentially in terms of like the science that goes into it from a research and how do you pick and choose modalities, exercise, everything else, but still being involved in the day to day, down on the field with the guys, working with them hand in hand. And that's what kind of led me to athletic training and then eventually doing the program at Arkansas. And here I am. So a little bit different
Wow.
pathway, I'm sure.
Yeah, you were looking for your brain to get jacked, but your body was not going along for the ride, so you changed it up. I love that. Uh,
Correct.
but man, okay, scientific. So from that perspective, then what what enthralls you in regards to the scientific approach or scientific minded about the athletic training? You mentioned a little bit, but go deeper into that.
Yeah, I mean, I just think there's so, I mean, sport is so complex yet so simple at the end of the day. There's so many movements, activities, cognitive layering, everything else that has to go into it to perform, even just kicking a ball, let alone understanding the formation you're in, what you're trying to do in a game, the game plan, everything else. And just the scientific aspect of even a simple exercise like a hamstring curl, what specifically is working within that? What do we need to look for to make sure it's correct? How can we go about regressing, progressing this? There's just so many little nuances, and the best part of it is that it's so scientific, but there's so little in our field that everybody's like, yes, that's correct. That's the way to do it. There's 1,000 ways to skin a cat and so many different unique ways to go about athletic training. So to me, it's almost a perfect blend of scientific yet also logical and gray and putting the pieces together how they make sense with the evidence you have or the patient you have and finding that blend of science leading the path but then also having to have the logic and application of it to put it all together and make it work for whoever you're working with.
So why not sports science? Why athletic
um
training?
it's a great question. I definitely had interest in sports science, and I think, quite frankly, at the time, it was more so just familiarity and understanding of the two.
Hmm.
My loose understanding of athletic training. So, like in high school, we didn't even have an athletic trainer until probably like my junior year, and it was a someone who would come for practices and games, but they weren't with us all the time, things of that nature. Then obviously, I saw it a bit more at Kentucky. I started working in facilities or in athletics with facilities as a student worker, setups for games, maintenance in the stadium, stuff like that, and then bumped into the athletic training staff there and kind of heard about what they do and everything else. Um, I definitely still tangent. Kind of the part that's also great about athletic training is that we don't really have the most like defined role, and we have a bit of freedom to kind of explore more into like strength and conditioning, biomechanics, sports science, even. Like we utilize our sports performance staff and sports science so much in like our prescription for on-field rehabs from like a loading standpoint with the GPS and everything else. And then even then picking their brain about working with certain athletes, their mechanics, how they move, things like that. Um, so I definitely have a lot of interest in the sports science, but as I've gotten more into or started with athletic training, gotten into it, I think the even deeper science of that with the understanding of anatomy and injury is just like another layer of the science that I love, just love to dive into and have to find a way to apply. So that's probably more what keeps me more athletic training than sports science.
Right on. Right on. Yeah, I in my perspective, I think that the athletic trainer, I won't say is the linchpin or the hub that has these spokes of stakeholders going out, but it's darn close. I mean, you've got the director of player performance or, you know, whatever they're going to call. There's so many different
Hmm.
titles depending on what sport you're looking at or which team. But the one that oversees all the stakeholders, from the physical therapists, athletic trainers, strength coaches, sleep specialists, sports scientists, mental skills coach, dietitian, nutritionist, all of those, right? The athletic trainer, like you say, you're the queen on the chessboard, so to speak. You've got
Hmm.
so many avenues that you can delve into and so many different moves. You can delve more into the medical side of thing and really get shoulder to shoulder with the physical therapist. But at the same time, you're moving over to the sleep specialist and you're like, okay, this is needed here from a performance, medical, and strength perspective. And then, of course, you got the strength coach. So it is really cool to be in that position where you just turn, you work with that person, turn work with that person. But why soccer? That's my thing. How did that come
So
about?
So this will be a great portion here in non-traditional in any sense. So soccer, so like growing up, like soccer was like never a thought in my mind.
I hear you.
Kentucky's not necessarily a hotbed for soccer.
You
It's
don't
getting
say.
better. It's getting
Oh,
better. But it's getting better. But I really didn't have an introduction to soccer until my first year at Arkansas. I had a rotation with the women's soccer team at Arkansas, which helps also. They're very successful, very high level. So it was a great environment to get dropped into. Really enjoyed it. Had a great time there. Learned a lot. It was like, wow, this really is interesting. There's a lot more that goes into this than, than I had thought, and, challenge some of my like thoughts and prejudices, if you will. Um, Kind of got away from that a little bit, but other places I'd worked in the secondary school setting and collegiate setting, we had soccer, and not that I was high school, I was like, I'd work with their games and stuff like that, monitor trainings. With college, I wasn't assigned to the women's soccer team at Louisiana Monroe, but with COVID and everything, people may be out, get shifted around, you're helping out. There's always something that like I enjoyed and didn't mind to do, but never something I really saw myself in. The opportunity really didn't come for me to like fully immerse myself until this job. And a former classmate of mine, Eric Schwartz, who's now our director here at New England, director of sports medicine. We were close in graduate school. We always worked well together in clinicals and class and everything else, studied together. And he's been in MLS for his entire career. And when he got brought to New England, he called me and he's like, "Hey, like I want to build something here. I want to do this. I want to do this the right way, and I want you to come help me out." It wasn't given to me. I still had to go through the interview process and show my worth and really sell myself, because it's really hard to sell to a professional soccer team. Me being a head athletic trainer at a Dallas high school at the time, like, hey, I'm the guy. You know what I mean? So it was a bit of an uphill battle, but no, super
what
thankful
do you
for.
think was the thing that sold them on you?
It's a great question. I think because of my varied experience in terms of setting sports, a little bit of everything, seeing a bit of everything, and kind of also my like professional approach and being like variable and being able to see things through a lot of different lenses. Maybe getting outside a bit of just like the traditional soccer lens, like whether you want to or not. If you work in the same setting for a long time, you're going to potentially get like some tunnel vision at times and see things from a soccer point of view or a basketball point of view, if that's all you've ever worked. So being able to bring a bit of uh, maybe a lot more like general expertise and knowledge, just because as an athletic trainer, we never know what we're going to see on a daily basis. To be able to bring some varied expertise. And then also, without being cliche, just like the grinder mentality, man, honestly, just to be able to, the jobs I've had, a lot of hours, had to take on a lot of responsibilities within my job and what was outside of my job, but was able to take that on and assist, the group I was working for at the time, wherever that may be, and just really sell the idea of like, hey, like I'm going to do whatever you ask me to do, work whatever hours you want me to do, and whatever I don't know, I'll learn it. I'll learn it quick. You're never going to have to worry about me, being a knucklehead or anything like that. Like I will do everything in my power to fit in as quickly as I can. And while I'm learning that, I'm going to pick up the slack on everything else, whether it's logistics or budget or things of that nature and kind of fill that gap because I have some experience with that. And then I'll learn everything I need to learn and apply it.
Sweet. Wow. And you're well spoken. You present yourself very well.
Ah,
Those are the things
thank
you
you.
didn't say, but
I
man,
appreciate
yeah, I felt like we're in an interview right now. I'm just feeling
it.
good about that. So fantastic. You land in Foxborough with the Rev. Now, does your duty stay exclusively with first team? Are you with second team, academy? Like, how far do you stretch in terms of the athletes that you see?
Typically, primarily the first team. Now, that doesn't mean that there won't be cases where second team or academy wants some input or insight on a case. We'll potentially step in and kind of give some, we'll evaluate the guy, take a look. Is there anything we can do? I do have a certificate in diagnostic ultrasound, so we'll provide that
Huh?
for the second team and academy. If, we kind of have something that's on the fringe, like we're not sure if there's something going on. Let's get an in-depth look, but we don't necessarily know if we need to like true imaging. We'll run the diagnostic ultrasound over that, take a peek, and then kind of go from there and do our own evaluation.
Is that a portable unit where you can take it right down the side of the pitch?
Yes, sir. Correct.
Crazy. That is so cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
awesome, man.
Without naming names, craziest ultrasound you've seen.
Uh, Former athlete of mine, previous to the revolution, um, was complaining of some like general quad discomfort he would get at times. Um, and at my previous job at a high school in Dallas, we actually got a grant to be able to purchase a diagnostic ultrasound, which was cool. So we were able to utilize that, and then we'd also utilize it with our docs whenever they were able to come in. But anyway, athlete complaining quad pain, don't really think much is going on, but let's scan it. Let's take a look, just see if there's something funky going on here. And I'm passing like over his VMO, and all of a sudden, just this like boop just pops up in the middle of the VMO, and I'm like, did I do that right? That doesn't look right. Go back over, and essentially he has like an accessory bone growth coming off of his femur, like butting
A
into
third
the
condyle.
VMO. Yeah, essentially. Yeah, and I was like, what in the world is this? And, like, go over it a few times, take a video of it, send it to our docs, and like, hey, like I haven't seen anything like this before. Is this something you guys are familiar with? And they were like, not overly, but it's not, I've heard of things like this, whatever. But made sure to get everything like checked out to make sure there wasn't anything more more malignant, I guess, going on. Make sure it wasn't anything too crazy, but turns out it was just a benign bony growth. And as long as it wasn't an issue, it wasn't an issue. And it wasn't anything that was debilitating for him or limiting. Just sometimes he'd get a little uncomfortable and it would go away. So kind of a really interesting finding. But yeah, that's probably the weirdest one I've seen.
Wow. Now, you also hold a position with the Revolution as immersion coordinator.
Correct.
Give me a little 411 on that. What does that entail?
Yeah, so we recently just started within the roughly last calendar year a fellowship program for new certified graduates to come in and participate in our fellowship program. So a paid job where they'll rotate through the three levels. I lead that in terms of the hiring process, coordinating that, and then also their formal education on top of whatever, on the job education they'll get from working with the teams. The immersion program in a similar lens is our student immersion program for students currently in an athletic training program. Again, I'm in charge of the selection process. We interview them almost like we would for, a real job, just to give them some of that experience. And then we bring them in from their schools to be with us for the semester as part of their clinical rotations. And then with them and the fellows, we go really in depth into what their curriculum was, if they're a student, where you're at in your curriculum, what you've taken, and then we try and tailor their education along like while they're here during that time. We'll have like four or five presentations I'll do. We'll call them like prefab in terms of like, here's GPS, here's the different GPS metrics, here's how we go about our rehab, here's how we go about our evaluation process. And then I'll save time for a few more that are particular to them and like where they're at in their education. What could you use a bit more of? Modalities. Okay, well, I'll put together a presentation on that. We'll chat through some of that, the mechanics of that. Or, hey, I saw this case the other day. I thought it was super interesting. Buck and handle meniscus, let's say. Can we talk more about that? No problem. I'll put together a presentation. We'll talk about that. And just really make sure it's tailored to each of them. I mean, obviously, they need to get they come here because they're interested in soccer, so we want to get them a good expertise and education on that. But then also making sure that they don't leave here. Everybody comes and leaves here with their own like tailored, unique experience instead of just a copy paste, if you will, for each person.
And how that's phenomenal because, first of all, you're the first MLS club that I'm aware of that does something like that. And I've had several other teams on over the last few years. Oh God, 6 years now. And I ask about an internship program and
Mhm.
fellowships and so on. But as far as I know, but help enlighten me. Are there other clubs doing this now, like
There
what
are.
you're doing? There are. Okay.
There are other clubs doing it. Sporting Kansas City is one of the main ones.
Nice.
NYCFC I know has a program. There are others that I know of for sure. I think FC Dallas has an immersion program. I think they're a clinical site for UT Arlington, if I remember correctly. Um, not everyone does. It's something that's definitely growing and something that I hope can expand to the entirety of the league. Just because we're in such a unique spot to not only offer a unique experience, obviously with
Right?
professional soccer, but just to be able to give some insight into what it takes to get from where you're at now as a student to where we're at now at this level. It's just this. I can only think it's so eye-opening for them to be able to take them and say, here, like, here's what you have to be able to do and get to if this is something that interests you, not from an intimidation standpoint, obviously, but from a, hey, like, uh, I loved your analogy in one of your previous interviews of basically you're in your yard and you have a tall fence and you're happy in your yard and you know it well and it's great. And then one day, a hole opens in the fence and you look out and you're like, what's going on over there? That looks interesting. And then all of a sudden there's these other avenues and things you didn't even think about or think were possible or like could relate to your feelings. Like, holy cow, like we're just scratching the surface here.
Right.
So I think it's just important to be able to show that to them that there's such this big, complex, world of athletic training.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. And then the fellowship, is it a seasonal placement? They go the entire season or is it just a portion?
It's a 12-month position, with the goal being that hopefully you're not with us the whole 12 months because hopefully you're, doing a good job and applying for things that interest you and then getting plucked because you're doing a good job. Our first immersion student, or sorry, our first fellow this past year, Kota Takahashi made it 7 months, I think, and now he's with Sporting Jacks, new club down in the USL, and he's crushing it down there. He's having a great time. Um, he's such a great student. Did a great job for us, and we were so happy for it to work out for him because that's what it should be, right? Like we bring you in, we're going to give you experience, give you knowledge, allow you to have the opportunity to build yourself. And I'm ready for this. Have the opportunity to work. You're certified, be in it completely, doing what you need to do, but also having us to be able to learn and still like bounce ideas off of things like that and kind of
Well,
guide you in.
that's just it, Alex. I mean, the certification is the minimal requirements to do something safely without killing
Correct.
somebody. I mean, whether
1,000%.
that's, an athletic trainer, strength coach, or personal trainer, or anything like that. It's just the bare minimum. So just because you're certified doesn't mean you've got a comprehensive knowledge base. This is where you take the fundamentals in which you learn to get you certified and then start to apply it and then learn so many other things. I mean, this is phenomenal. A recruitment tool at the same time as you're raising the bar across the entire, I'll say the PSATs society, right? The Professional Soccer
Sure.
Athletic Trainers Society, right? It's just like what a great way of rising all the boats with the tide. And so curious about this, and you can just say, hey, move on to a different subject if you want to, but I'm enthralled by this because I'm wondering, is it exclusive to your club and compared to NYCFC or Sporting KC, or do you guys chat amongst yourselves like at your annual conference? I think it's November or December. Do you guys gather together and talk about what you're doing with the fellowship or your clinical rotations for the students?
No, for sure. We really try and pick each other's brains in terms of, what are you guys doing? What are you having success with? Or maybe something you're not having as much success with. And even to the point of like if we have candidates, I mean, it's super competitive, right? So if we have a candidate who we really, really like, but they didn't quite make the cut, we may contact another place, Sporting or someone and say, hey, like I know you guys have your position open. We interviewed this individual. They did a great job. They just got beat out. If you guys are still interested, I think they'd be worth an interview and to kind of connect them and try and help bridge the gap, not just to help them, but also help the student that's trying to get the position, right? Just because it should be all about trying to like, pay it forward for them, try and create an opportunity for them. So we definitely do chat about that from a fundamental standpoint, like how we organize it and how we do it and what's been our successes and our failures within it. And then also, trying to connect the students and individuals in different places to try and help them out as well.
We're just going to take a quick pause from this conversation to acknowledge our sponsors, and then we'll be right back. The Zelos Podcast is sponsored by Kinetic IQ, where intelligence meets motion. Kinetic IQ brings a biomechanics lab into the palm of your hand, letting you measure movement anytime, anywhere with just an iPad or iPhone. No wearables required. I've been using Kinetic IQ in my own practice, and whether you're screening athletes, optimizing performance, or guiding return to play, it helps practitioners like us save time, capture more objective data, and make instant actionable decisions. So to learn more about how Kinetic IQ is shaping the future of intelligent movement, visit kinetikiq.com. That's KINETIKIQ.com. At the forefront of metabolic elite is Jim Lavelle, internationally recognized clinical pharmacist, a chief science officer at Lifetime, and the co-chair for the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. He's got over 4 decades of experience and has guided Olympic athletes, professional teams, and leading health institutions. You know what makes Metabolic Elite different is their commitment to real results. Like Lipitab, their proprietary solid-state liposomal delivery system. It's a chewable format which enhances absorption like nutrients like BPC 157 and synapses. They're delivered more efficiently in the body, supporting recovery, focus, cognitive health. Their formulas go beyond the basics, solving performance health challenges at the system level. Every product is tested for quality, it's backed by research, it's trusted by athletes and clinicians alike. And you can get 10% off all of Metabolic Elite products by entering the coupon code ZELOS, ZELOS. So how do you keep yourself from being stretched thin? I mean, you're a young dad, so you've got a family life. You've got how many matches are in a complete season before you go into the playoffs?
34.
And that's 2 matches a week on average. And then you've got all of your job responsibilities as an athletic trainer, your daily meetings, and then you've got this whole fellowship and an internship, if you will. Like, yeah, how do you do it? I know how I do it, but I'm looking for trade secrets here. Like, how do you keep your sanity, and how do you? And I'm not going to say balance because I think that's a misnomer. I've walked down the railroad tracks on the rail, and balance means I have to waver on one side and then waver on the other. It's not a static central point. So balance is like, how do you orbit around all of your responsibilities?
No, it's a great question, and I really like your analogy because I do think that the true like balance is a bit of a misnomer, and there's always going to be. I mean, it's sport, and let alone pro sport. There's always going to be things that pop up, and like I have to handle this now. I'm sorry, like I have to take some time to do this. I'm just so blessed, honestly, with having Kristen as my wife, who she's also an athletic trainer. Fun fact. So she understands the game and knows what goes into it. So I'm just so blessed to have her, honestly, in terms of someone who like understands, and I could be like a soundboard too when I get home. In general, making sure I find time for family time, get home and unplug for a bit, sit with my son, sit with my wife, really make sure I stay in touch with my friends, find ways to chat with them, whether it's over the phone or, video games or something like that. Just find time to, even if we just sit and talk for, 30 minutes to an hour, just to find a way to kind of, move realms, so to speak. Um, But other than that, man, honest, Eric laughs every time I say it. This is the easiest job I've had, quite frankly, which sounds crazy. Think about pro sport, everything that goes into it, and it's a lot. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's easy by any means, but other jobs I've had in the past, just like from an hour standpoint or the responsibilities that pile up, when it's double-edged sword of being useful is that you're able to provide good things, but then it's like, well, hey, like, can you help with this? Can you help with this? Can you help with this? And those things pile up. Not that I didn't enjoy doing them and didn't have great experiences at my past jobs, but it could be a lot. And from like an hour standpoint, smaller group standpoint, obviously pro soccer, um, there's meetings and stuff that come into play, but I just genuinely like love what I do. And I'm a big believer in the cliche of if you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life. Um,
Right?
so I enjoy it. And so, I don't really see it as too much. I love teaching the students. Education, I think, is something I want to move into eventually in my career. I'd love to potentially go back and get my DAT, teach in an athletic training program somewhere. I just love the field and I love the education side of things. I still have the itch to be on the floor with the guys and be down on the pitch with the guys. So I still need that
Yeah.
itch scratched here and there.
I think everyone should always keep their foot somewhere in the door there. There's too many times where I think it's the American way where you're an amazing, excellent technician with your skills, knowledge base, and so on. So the key is how do we replicate that in others? Oh, well, we put you up into management, which I think is, I think that is a disservice in some ways, but to stay where your passion is and be able to have both feet in on either side of the line is, well, at least in my opinion, is the way I'd want to do it. I know that I stepped off the training floor for a while and let my staff take care of everything, but there's something about getting back on in the weight room or in the training room, and man, it just gives you a little bit of jazz when you can see change occur. And yeah, I know
1,000%.
So okay, pursuing education, really interested in DAT somewhere down the road, and so on. So, what areas of sports medicine or performance are you most excited about, like right now? What's got your feathers ruffling in a good way?
That's a that's a really good question.
I got a whole bunch of good questions. I'm lining them up, baby. But tell me,
I
yeah.
think it I think it ebbs and flows depending on what we're working with at the moment. Um, that's what I enjoy about this is being able to dive into so many avenues. I've spent time previously in my career being really passionate about like heat and hydration, dealing with critical events with being heat related, hydration in general. Like I'm a big proponent of if you have the ability to do it, sweat rate testing with your athletes, not so that you can sit there and be like, hey, Billy, make sure you drink your 1.7 liters of water that you're losing during this training session, but just to make them more cognizant of it and just be like, hey, like this is important. And then be able to sit and chat with them about the detriments of, performance drops, with 2% dehydration. You don't even know that you're dehydrated because it's not till 2% dehydration that you're thirsty. So you're already losing performance and you don't even realize it. So that's
Do
something I've
you
been
measure
passionate
that
about in my
with
career.
like? Do you measure that with body composition? So you're looking at lean weight in terms of like how much is lost, like before and after practice or a competition. How do you determine sweat rate?
Correct. So, really got into this at the University of Arkansas with Dr. McDermott. Heat and hydration is kind of his wheelhouse, and he was a great mentor to me while I was there. And I kind of dove in and helped him with some of his research while I was there. But the simplest way to do it and the most practical is, pre-session, weigh the guys, have them go on, train, come back, weigh again. If you're truly monitoring it, you should either restrict fluids or find a way to measure how much they consume during the session, so you can put that into your calculation for pre-weight to post-weight. So typically, what I've done in the past is when we do the testing, is each guy has like an individual bottle. You weigh it pre-session, you weigh it post. If they went through a full body, you had to refill, you mark it. That way, there's no mistakes or outliers when it comes to your math at the end. But the simplest way is just to pre and post weight, and then you know that should be the fluid loss, and then you can prescribe based off of that.
Okay,
Um,
I know you and I are science geeks, and so right now my mind's going to like, okay, I want to know the humidity, I want to know the heat index, and I want to know wind speed. So do
yep.
you take because we're talking about evaporation or lack of evaporation and So do you take that into consideration too? Do you go that deep, or you just go stand on the scale? Okay, go back and stand on the scale. We're good.
It's something that I've toyed with. I haven't put it into practical use yet, but obviously there are considerations for, wind speed and humidity causing issues with dehydration of the sweat, which then does that cause them to maintain it? Do they not sweat it off then because the body's unable to burn that off through evaporation? There's so many things that come into play. Which is why I think it's important when you do your testing to do repeat testing. Don't just go off of one session and then prescribe from there, just because I mean, especially in New England, how it's been the last couple months, the weather's been so variable. And if
Hmm.
I take an athlete here in New England in March, where it may still be 40 degrees and windy, and I try and do a sweat rate with them, that's not going to be accurate 2 months from now when it's 80 degrees like it was today. I
Or
can't tell them,
tomorrow when
hey,
it's 70 degrees or something. It's so
of
variable from one day to
of
the
course.
next.
Exactly. So there has to be a bit of repeat testing and then teasing some things out in terms of, what was the weather like each of these days? Try and align similar days the best you can to like what the average will be. And then even then, probably repeat the testing in terms of seeing if the sweat rate has changed in terms of early in the season. Maybe this is what you're doing when the weather was X within these variables. Later in the season, we're going to do it again when the weather changes, gets hotter, humidity's different, wind is different. I don't have a great way of putting those exact measurements into it, but it does give me consideration for repeat testing and monitoring, if that makes sense.
It totally does. And now to throw a complete boomerang into this too, ethnicity. I recall it was probably 15 plus years ago reading a research article all about the hereditary factors or ethnicity in regards to sweat glands. For instance, those that come from the Caucasus, the European nations, have a higher concentration of sweat glands than those in Asian populations, which have fewer. And there was a correlation, I know it's going to sound weird, with earwax as well. So I
Huh.
know, right? The Europeans sweat more, and the earwax is actually quite waxy, where typically Asian athletes sweat less, and their ear waxed is actually small, hard kind of pebbles or stones. So parents of Asian children often have this tiny little wooden spoon rather than a Q-tip swab to clean out ears, and they would scrape these little pebbles out of the ears. I had no idea we were going
Wow.
there for this podcast conversation. If you had asked me when we started, this was the furthest thing that I was thinking. But it just shows us that there's so many things that we could take into consideration. I love what you're doing. I love your mind. And speaking of which, how about this? I've got some rapid fire questions. Seems like a
Okay.
really good time to throw these at you. You up for it?
I'm up for it. Let's do it.
Okay. Recovery or preparation, which matters more?
Preparation.
Cool. Most underrated quality in elite soccer players.
Most underrated quality in elite soccer players. I might have to chew on that one. We go to the
Okay.
other ones and I
We'll
circle
come
back to
back.
that? It's a
Yeah.
great
Yeah. When we say rapid fire, we don't really mean it. It's just kind of loosely thrown in there, but that's okay. Manual therapy or movement based rehab?
movement based, 1000%.
Okay. What about the biggest mistake athletes make during rehab?
Uh, Going too fast too soon from I feel good, I can do more standpoint.
Right on. What breaks down faster in soccer, hips or hamstrings?
Faster, I would argue hamstrings
All
because
right. One
the
thing.
hip, no, go
Yeah.
ahead. I
No,
was going to
because
say
the hips
because
what?
the hips will have morphological change just because of the demands of the sport, which can lead to breakdown. But a lot of times we'll actually find asymptomatic incidental findings at the hip that the patient doesn't complain about when we do imaging for other local areas around the
Oh, now that's cool. All right. Glad we poked that one out. One
hip.
thing young practitioners should learn earlier. Yeah. Like what those students that are coming in doing their clinical rotations, what do you wish they knew before they came?
Ooh, um, soft skills in terms of working
Soft
with people.
skills.
Soft skills. So hard skills in
Communication?
in this communication, timeliness,
Mm.
adaptability, things like that that you can't necessarily quantify. Um,
The
I think
things we
that'd
were
be a
raised
hard.
with that have been lost since COVID.
I would agree. Yes,
Okay,
I would
cool.
agree.
How about data or intuition? What guides you more?
What guides me more? If I have to pick one, it would be intuition, just because I do truly like it's going to be counter to everything else I just said about the science and everything else. But at the end of the day, there has to be a clinician component of you make the yes or no. Does this make sense? Does it work? And ultimately, it does fall on a combination of all the things. I would say sometimes even things can look right or look bad, but something tells you that it can work out if you do it X way. So I would say you always have to trust your intuition.
I fully agree. I think that intuition is basically our inability to truly recall into the conscious the information that we have absorbed in the past. And we just creates a feeling that, oh, I just got to go with that. So in truth, I mean, scientifically, I do believe there's some strong basis behind intuition and more so than just what the numbers are telling you. Okay, most valuable recovery tool that costs nothing.
Most valuable recovery tool that costs nothing is sleep.
See,
Sleep,
this is one
sleep,
of those
sleep,
Batman
sleep, sleep.
Riddlers. Yeah, I was thinking sleep, rest. Yeah, one of those. That was perfect. And if you had only 15 minutes with an athlete, what's your priority?
15 minutes with an athlete, what's my priority? Can I get a bit of content? Injured, healthy? What are we
Yeah, how
talking
about
about?
assessments? How about just overall assessment? When you got to screen an athlete, what's your priority? What are you looking for first?
If I'm screening an athlete, I'm going through different applicable joint ranges of motion to see what looks right, what doesn't look right, what could be imbalanced. Um, Tissue length. I think tissue length is important in terms of teasing out, if I don't know this person from Adam, potentially, previous injuries that contributing to this. Is there some sort of neurological dysfunction causing this? Things of that nature. Give me things to target. Um, and then last, I would take them for screening. I would take them through different testing that we want to see that's applicable, whether it's Nordics, ISO 30s, CMJ, things of that nature, just to get a full makeup of, how does it look like you'll move? How do these tissues move? How do you apply them? How do you make that work?
Beautiful. Okay, one word that defines great staff culture.
One word that defines great staff culture is collaboration. Has to be
Beautiful.
collab. You have to be collaborative. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Even though the conversations won't always be easy and you're not always gonna, laugh and joke with each other all the time. Sometimes they get pretty spicy. Um, you have to do it. You have to all bring all your ideas and your thoughts together because otherwise, how can you? We're a team at the end of the day. Everything needs to be a team decision. And if you don't sit and collab and come to a unified decision, then I don't think you're doing what's best.
You did a fantastic job there. That was great.
I
Nice job.
appreciate it, Rocky. Thank you so
Heck
much.
yeah. I'm just thinking about the environment that you walk into there with the Rev. You've got a whole bunch of support, professional support for the athletes and the team. But and there may be some roles that were not present in your previous positions elsewhere. So with those stakeholders, we'll call them those professionals in this whole collaborative team, which ones were? Did you just go, oh, this is kind of a unique experience because I haven't really communicated or worked with this particular field? Was there something like that?
Sports science and the performance side of things for sure. Just somebody
Really?
else to, yeah. I mean, everything in my career has been second prior to the Rebs, secondary school, and then collegiate with University of Louisiana Monroe. But we didn't have sports science; we had strength and conditioning.
Huh.
So just another department to kind of how we can be a go-between at times. I think sports science is also in a unique go-between spot where they can contribute some to the strength conditioning, but also have, control over the metrics and what we want to see and the prescription of that, as opposed to, maybe places that don't have that and don't have access to the GPS or things like that. Like, hey, like we're going to go practice today. Well, what does that look like? What qualities are we looking for? How are we measuring that? And it's like, well, we're going to sprint and we're going to change direction. It's like, all right, well, do we have a way of quantifying that? Is it time? Is it effort? Is it, how do we find a way to do that? And I'm not saying that to be like, you have to have GPS to do it. Obviously, it's a luxury to have the tools that we have. And
Certainly.
I'm a big believer in the measure of who we are is what we do with what we have. And you have to find ways to be creative. And you may not have a force deck like from Vault, right? You might not have a force plate, but you better find a way to try and replicate some of those qualities. Whether it's, I take a crane scale and I overload a bar and I, make an athlete do an isometric, mid thigh pull with that to try and replicate what I would do on the force deck. I have to find a way to be able to replicate some of those things. Um, so I think that position specifically was unique to me, and having the tools and the be able to dive more into the knowledge when it comes like GPS and stuff like that. But I definitely don't say that to say, oh, you have to be this data driven and everything to be right. Obviously the vast majority of the field doesn't have access to those things. But I do think that having the luxury of those tools can go twofold bad depending how you want to do it, right? It can be we rely too much on the tools and the data instead of having our intuition and our experience and pulling from that. And then conversely, I think it's easy if you don't have those tools to just throw your hands in the air and be like, well, I guess I can't do that. I can't figure that out. It's our job to be creative and find solutions to that. So what? I don't have the $3,000 machine that spits this out for me. If I can find a way to replicate that, even if it's tedious and time consuming and takes, maybe three tests to make up for that one, it's my job as a clinician to do that, in my opinion.
Right on. Right on. That's great to hear. No, I was surprised because I was thinking just university settings, you're going to find some type of science staff connected to the sports, but it's not as ubiquitous as it could be, I guess, or as I thought it was going to be. So that's really cool to gain some more data driven insight into your own methodologies and approaches, and if nothing else to help to confirm but also to challenge you. So
For sure.
what has been challenged, what has been in terms of your fundamentals and your ideas, have sports science, has it created questions in your own mind as to, like, does it question your approach? Have you had your tree shaken and just have some of the leaves fallen away, and the ones that have held on tight, you're like, yeah, that's been reinforced. You know what I'm saying?
No, 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 for sure. I think that I like the question because I think it's important for all of us to get our trees shaken every now and again.
It certainly
You have
is.
to keep learning. You have to find ways to keep challenging yourself because everything keeps. I mean, sport is ever changing. What goes into it is ever changing. Athletes are adapting at a crazy rate from just from what we're able to introduce now and the stimuli that creates. And athletes are in a whole different scale now than they were 10, maybe even 5 years ago in terms of what they're able to do. I think some things that were challenged with me is that I still am, and I always have been a big, I would say probably soccer has challenged me more than anything, is I've always been really big about loading. Loading, loading, loading. I find that a lot of times in the rehab setting, we underload our patients during the rehabilitation process. Um, and I think that leads to sometimes false positive results of we underload the patients and then sometimes it ends up working out. They do their 2 weeks, 4 weeks off, whatever it may be, and they're able to return. Well, did we actually get them back to baseline, which again can be challenging to determine based on the setting you're in? Did we actually get them back to that baseline, or did they essentially have 2 to 4 weeks of rest because we really didn't do a ton with them from a loading standpoint and they just healed? And they're able to do the things, but did we actually do right by them and getting them back, maybe even better than what they were before? So I've always been big on loading and things of that nature, coming from a lot of like American football experience and things like that, whether it's high school, collegiate. I think soccer has challenged me because soccer is such a demanding sport systemically that there's so much that goes in, that so much that's taxed in the body by playing it. You have to sprint, you have to, move around, you have to change direction, you have to react so quickly. The game can, flip on a dime. Um, I think I've had to kind of challenge myself in that, as I still think that loading is appropriate at the correct times, uh, even in season for the guys in general, slash with our rehabs and how we go about building them back up. But more so from the standpoint of like my dosages, if you will, in terms of like what I'm prescribing, how much I'm prescribing. Does it make sense to do it this day? And, it's not just rehab, it's, we have, maintenance plans as well for guys, joints get cranky, tendons get cranky. It's not an injury, but we have to address it. I have to be really creative with my exercise prescription. It'd be very, well, guys got, bilateral patellar tendinopathy. It'd be easy for me on paper to be like, hey, we're going to go do some heavy, slow, eccentric squats. That should treat it, which it should. But then the guy is fried and then he's unable to go to training the next day or even that
Right.
day. So it's like, okay, well, then how do I change my exercise prescription and my dosages to still address the issue, but make sure they're still fresh to do the job that, play the game they're paid to do and play the game they enjoy doing. So that's probably been something that's been challenging for me, is it's such just a unique branch of athletics with soccer, that finding that little, navigating that path, if you will.
Truly. And just thinking about the soft tissue, if it's tendinous, then the way you're going to load them may very well be different than if it's more muscular or ligamentous or fascial, right? We
Correct.
may be changing the tempo of the load or the contraction, and maybe more that I want a more of a concentric load. I may want an eccentric. I may need an isometric at that end range. It all depends. So knowing that will further guide you. Yeah, as you can tell, we could talk shop
And
all
we could
day
have
long here.
we could have a whole other segment on just that. I would love to
Oh,
chat more about that.
oh, heck yeah. Okay, then we'll make a date for that. Maybe near the end of the season when you've come
Okay.
up with a little bit more air. I can't believe you've got even time to put aside this hour with me. So I honestly, I got to thank you for coming on once again. And this is an opportunity, like if you just put out information, whether it's research or social media or anything else, how can people kind of just follow you?
I'm on all platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, sorry, X, the everything app, LinkedIn. Primarily do most of my professional stuff via LinkedIn. Some things here and on Instagram, but LinkedIn is probably the best place to find me from a professional standpoint. Just search my name, Alex Forehan. Hopefully, I'll pop up. That's where I do most of my professional work. Nothing research based yet. We'll see what the future holds. Maybe some things in the cards. But yeah, LinkedIn's probably best from a professional standpoint for sure.
Beautiful. Well, Alex, thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate this conversation.
No, thank you, man. This was a blast. Really enjoyed it and would love to chat again sometime.
It's going to happen for sure.
All
And we'll put a pin in it for now. We'll get back to you next week. But first, thank you, Alex and the Rev, for making this happen. Remember, this month in June, we've got the Chicago venue for the Perform Better Training Summits. And then in July, Long Beach. And finishing up August, we'll be in Providence, Rhode Island. Make sure you register. Just go to performbetter.com. And while you're online, also check out the National Conference for the NSCA in New Orleans this year in July. Be sure to register now so you can get a little bit of an early bird discount. And until next week, just have yourself a fantastic week. I know I will. One more word from our sponsors. Remember to check out metabolicelite.co. Check out all the products they have on their website. Synapsin Pro is something I've been using to help stay focused without having to over-caffeinate myself. It keeps me in the zone so I can just really hone in on the things I need to achieve without feeling like, man, I got to reach for an energy drink every 5 minutes. Metabolicelite.co. And don't forget, Kinetic IQ. They've got markerless motion capture for morons like me. I can use their product with my iPhone or my iPad. I can look at posture analysis, movement analysis of any exercise, gait analysis. It gives me everything I could possibly want when tracking people's movements. So, check out kineticiq.com.